Hello viewers and welcome to my new video. In today's video I would like to talk to you about how to make the most out of your band practice. And this is something that I've got a great experience in. I've been in many bands over the years and I've done a lot of band practices, band rehearsals, and with various bands, and they were done in sort of different ways. But I suppose I've learned quite a lot through that process, and I've learned a lot about how to be efficient and actually make the most of that time that you have. Usually you will have to pay for a rehearsal room, and probably per hour or per session, so it's really crucial that you actually make the most of that money that you've actually invested in that time. I know about bands, especially in the past, that used to just kind of go to the rehearsal room and almost like invite the mates along as well. And they would basically turn it into almost like a party where people would be like even maybe drinking during that session and doing all these different things. Personally, I don't recommend this. I think this just disrupts everything. It prevents people from being able to focus on what you do. Also, inviting other people along actually sometimes may distract you, actually, or detract from what you are there for, and that also that presence of the another person might also kind of throw people out a little bit, and I know it sounds a bit bizarre because you're supposed to be artists and you're supposed to be kind of performers, and performing in front of people is basically what you do. But I think there's a time and place for it, and that time and place is at the gig, at the live show, at the live performance. But actually when you work on songs, during that time when you work on them, I think it's very key that you and your bandmates are there on your own, sort of, and then you bounce ideas off each other, and then you kind of work and focus on what you actually want to achieve. Preparation is really key in those situations as well, because actually to do preparation ahead of a rehearsal session will save you a lot of time to actually try and figure things out during the session itself. How can you prepare? Well, for example, if you are working on a song, if you are a songwriter in your band, you could actually sort of record your ideas and share them with the other band members in advance. So for example, say your rehearsal is scheduled in a week's time and you've got this musical idea. Well, you could just record it, send it to them, and basically ask them to learn that song. Or you can actually ask them to maybe develop their own parts to add, and kind of, and they have a week to do that. And when everybody actually comes on the day, everybody already knows the structure, what you're gonna be working on, so you don't actually spend time during the rehearsal whilst being in the room together trying to explain to people what it is that you're playing, what is the chord progression, what is the tempo of the song, that kind of thing, because everybody already has come prepared. Sometimes it's good to write almost like a rehearsal plan as well. And actually, when I was in a band called Manifest, our bass player used to do that. He not necessarily wrote it out, but sometimes he had like a bit of he used to call it lesson plan, so to speak. And the rehearsals became really focused because of that, because effectively what we would do is, maybe we were in the middle of writing an album, or we may be in the middle of preparing for a live performance. And I think those two things are slightly different, because when you are writing, I think your rehearsal should probably focus around particular songs and sort of polishing those songs and making them better, working on parts, trying different things, maybe saying like, oh, how does this ending work? How does that ending work? Can we incorporate a bridge here, or can we do like a little bit like a maybe guitar will drop and the bass and the drums will just play sort of on their own for a bit, that kind of thing. So that's kind of working on some of these ideas at that time. But I think what is really helpful also is to pick certain songs or certain parts of songs to work on for a particular rehearsal. Because for example, if you have 10 songs that you might be working on, or it's like a 10-song album, you're not gonna be able to properly practice all 10 songs during one rehearsal session. So what you might want to do is actually pick two, for example, and just work on those two songs for the entire time that you have, and but actually really focus on them. Don't just play through. So if you want to, you can do that as well. You can play through the entire song, but actually focus on parts and getting them right. If somebody is still not quite certain about what to play or how they want to approach it from the kind of individual instrument perspective or a vocal perspective, stop, focus on that particular part. So for example, this might be a verse of the song, and just work on that verse, repeat it again, discuss it between yourselves, maybe write something down. Also what's really important is to record your rehearsals, because by recording what you're doing, then you can go home and actually in a home environment, away from that sort of hustle and bustle of other people being in the rehearsal room and doing that band practice, you can actually listen critically to what you've done and what you're working on, and then you can actually write your notes. And I also recommend doing that. Write your notes down after you've listened to those songs, and then come next rehearsal, you will come prepared, and you will actually be able to, or even before, again, this is about the preparation, before your next rehearsal, write to your bandmates, send them your notes and tell them, these are the things that I've identified as areas for improvement. So for example, we can do something different here. I can add a little bit of a solo, the vocals could be changed, I've rewritten this lyrical line or something else. I would also say something, and this may surprise some of you, but I don't know, but I've mentioned that already about drinking and sort of bringing alcohol to the rehearsal space. I am not a fan of that. I have previously experienced this with other people who sort of liked to do that, because they almost treated that time as, it's like a, spending time with your friends, with your bandmates or whatever. So whilst I'm, coming to the rehearsal room and I'm gonna have these 3 or 4 hours of rehearsal time, I'm gonna bring, I don't know, a couple of cans of beer with me or that kind of thing, but actually, you know what, this actually has a negative effect. And rather than focusing and actually on your parts and what you're playing, it kind of, like I said, it kind of can turn into a bit of a something else, basically. That and also being under influence of substances, unfortunately, affects your ability to play. Even if you don't think that it does, it actually does, and you won't be as focused. Your reflexes will be slower, basically, especially if you've had a drink. You won't be as accurate at playing and that kind of thing. So so I would recommend to practice sober. What's really good to do during rehearsals is not just practice playing music. So for example, especially if you are rehearsing for a live show, what's really recommended, and I've done this many times with various bands I've been in, is to actually rehearse as if you are playing live. So thinking about what you're gonna do when you're on stage. And what we used to actually do is we would, because in a normal sort of traditional rehearsal scenario, say for example it's a 3-piece band, because those are the bands that I've usually been in, we would kind of stand facing each other, right? So in a normal classical rehearsal situation, there would be, say, a bass player standing over here, I would be standing here, and then there would be a drummer, sort of, and we would all face each other. And then sort of that also allows for, non-verbal communication, giving each other some cues, nods, whatever, facial expressions and that kind of thing. But what you need to remember is, in the live situation, you're not gonna be doing that. If you do that in a live situation, it looks really amateurish, it doesn't look professional, it doesn't look great, people are not gonna be drawn to you if you do that, honestly, because it just looks like you are at the rehearsal, and this is a live show, is not a rehearsal, right? So at the live show, what's really important is that interaction with your audience, the interaction with the crowd. So what we used to do is, for example, me and the bass player, who are also doing the vocals, we would turn our backs to the drummer. so the drummer couldn't see us. We couldn't really kind of see each other very well, because and then we will put our mic stands, for example, on both sides as though we were on stage, and we would just kind of imagine that this is what we're doing. This is now a live show, and then we would practice those routines. You know, I think this is also important. You practice where you're gonna be standing, what you're going to be doing. You know, what are you gonna be swapping sort of places, because again, bands do that. You know, are you gonna be walking to the sort of edge of the stage, then to the center of the stage? Are you both gonna be sort of going sort of around each other, maybe swapping mics, things like that? So a lot of these ideas, also what you're gonna be saying, you know, in between the songs, that kind of thing. How are you going to introduce the band? You know, amazingly important, because I used to do that. You know, I used to figure this out. You know, say we had an intro for a song, and I would be going, okay, so we played that intro, and then we have like a bit of a crescendo at the beginning, and I already figured out what I would say at that point, so it wouldn't be like a I wouldn't sort of sound unprepared, you know, when it came to that live situation. Nerves, stage fright, whatever, you name it, it wouldn't prevent me from being able to deliver that, because I already had those lines kind of prepared in advance, and I was able to say what I wanted to say to the audience. Something else I would like to recommend is making sure that your equipment actually is in a working order. Oh, again, that will save you time, because, for example, if you are going to a rehearsal, and then all of a sudden you say open your guitar case or your whatever, and you realize, actually, you know, this is not working, or something is going on with my amp, with my guitar, I don't know. Or you know, maybe you need to replace your skins on your drums, whatever that might be. It's a good idea to actually check your equipment once you're not in a rehearsal room. Check it in advance, so when you come to the rehearsal, and get everything fixed, so that everything is in a working order. When you come to the rehearsal, you can actually just take your guitar out of your guitar case and play, and everything, just plug it into the amp, and everything should be working from the get-go. Thanks very much for watching the video. I hope that you find these tips helpful, and let me know in the comments what you think, whether I've got some other suggestions and recommendations. By the way, I'm always curious to hear them and read them, and I will see you in my next video.